Dear students, welcome to this lecture of Strategic Human Resource Management. And as you can see, the topic for today is Strategic Knowledge Management. I am Dr. Tripti Barthwal and I am Director, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management and Development Studies, Lucknow. So, in the previous lectures, we have had a little insight into what knowledge management is, what is strategic knowledge management, and how it is a very important part of HR, and how it is very important for achieving the strategic objectives of the organization. So, with that little information which we have, we will delve deeper today into the concept of strategic knowledge management and try to understand how it can be used and how it can be effectively implemented in an organization. So, we all know that we live in a knowledge economy, making knowledge one of the most modern companies' most important assets. So, in the earlier lecture also I told you that the organizations have access to almost the similar resources these days in terms of technology, in terms of money also. You have so many sources of getting fundings and finance. Even the startups manage to get fair share of their funds. And but as far as knowledge is concerned, knowledge which specially resides in the people, the assets, human resource assets of the organization, that knowledge by far is the factor which makes an organization different from the other and which determines the competitive advantage of an organization. So, businesses are seeing the prominence of managing knowledge if they are to persist competitive and grow. So, in order to move ahead, in order to do better, businesses are dependent on knowledge. But knowledge is frequently undocumented, difficult to access and at the risk of disappearing. The problem because of which strategic knowledge management has become very important is because that in most of the organizations, knowledge is not taken that seriously as it should be taken, because most of the things people know or most of the processes which have been developed are there at the practical level, but as far as the theoretical level is concerned, that is documenting them, putting them into white and black, that is not done. And even if it is done, then if somebody wants to access that knowledge, if somebody wants to read something or to get advantage from it, that is very difficult to retrieve, and that is how gradually, once it is not passed from one person to another, then it is at the risk of disappearing also. So, Louis E. Platt, former CEO of Hewlett and Packard, he says a very important and an interesting thing. He says, if HP knew what HP knows, we would be 3 times more productive. So, it is a very interesting quote, and it is little contradictory also in that way, but the meaning is very direct and clear, that if whatever in the due course of time, whatever knowledge HP had accumulated, whether it was through trial and error, whether it was through brainstorming, whether it was people developing something new, people coming up with new forms of ways of doing things, whatever that knowledge was developed, if all that would have been recorded, if all of that had been put in a proper system, if all that would have been managed in a proper way, then HP would have been much more better off than what it is today. Consequently, several firms everywhere are starting to dynamically manage their knowledge and innovation. So, that importance companies are realizing now, and Knowledge management is any system that helps people in an organization share, access and update business knowledge and information. So, we have already discussed in the earlier lecture also that it is a system by which organization people can share knowledge, they can retrieve whenever they want relevant knowledge, and they can also update the existing knowledge as and when required. So, that is for the reason for which we require a proper system of strategic knowledge management. Now, when we add the word strategic to it, right, when we add the word strategic to knowledge management, then it relates to the processes and infrastructures organizations use to attain, create and share knowledge for formulating strategy and making strategic decisions. So, obviously, when we add the word strategic to it, then it gets related to strategy. So, any knowledge which organizations have attained, they have created, they have shared, and which is being used for formulation of strategies or for arriving at strategic decisions is strategic knowledge management. Now, why do we need strategic knowledge management? Because what happens, I gave you the example of NASA also, that what happened in NASA after their first space expedition, the second space expedition was planned at a budget which was much higher than the first expedition, and when the reasons were found out, it was found that most of the people who had worked on the first project had either left, or they had died, or they had resigned, or they had achieved the age of superannuation. So, many of them had left, and that is why nothing was documented and it was difficult to retrieve the knowledge. So, everything had to be started from scratch. So, employees quit and retire, taking with them what may amount to decades of company knowledge. Even if they train their replacements before leaving, departing employees are never able to pass on everything they know, because some knowledge is tacit. So, first thing is that employees, there is whatever high or low, even if it is very low, there is some turnover in the organization, there is some rate of attrition in the organization, and because of that, knowledge needs to be properly documented and managed. Secondly, even if before people leave the organization, they quit their position in the organization, they may train new hires or their replacements, but everything cannot be transferred. It is but obvious, if your father or your mother or your brother or your sister has a skill, howsoever hard they may try, but all the skills cannot be transferred to the offsprings, or to the siblings. So, similarly, because why? The reason is that all knowledge is not expressed, many things are implied, many things are tacit, right. So, that is why it cannot be done. So, it is like the knowledge which is explicit, you can see that it is on the superficial level, it can be seen, it is in terms of pictures, videos, audio recordings, precise documents. This explicit knowledge is precise. It is in the form of formulas, books, words, manuals, right. But so much, only 1/4 of the knowledge is explicit or precise, the other part is tacit. It is not documented, it is unwritten, it is imprecise, elusive, intuition, it is based on consciousness, emotions, personal knowledge, unspoken, hidden knowledge. And that is why, kind of knowledge keeps on growing also because of that. If all knowledge was explicit, then nothing would have been left to the discretion of individuals to add on to that knowledge. So, because it is related to our intuition also, it is related to our experience also, it is related to our consciousness also. So, knowledge keeps on growing, and this part, which is the major portion of knowledge, cannot be transferred from one person to another. It is very difficult to transfer, and that is why even if people train their replacements, full transfer of knowledge does not take place. Then computer hard drives fail and devices get lost or stolen, wiping out any information stored locally. So, employees and especially support teams spend less time answering repetitive questions, freeing them up to focus on one more important and more profitable work. So, one of the benefits, if we are having a good system of strategic knowledge management in the organization, then what are we doing? We are allowing our employees to do more productive work, because the already known things already which have been for which solutions and answers already exist for those problems, everything is well documented, everything is managed properly, and employees can just go and access that knowledge repository, and they can get answers to their questions. When employees are not sharing information, they are bound to repeat the same mistakes others have already made. So, they are not learning from each other's mistakes, they are not learning from each other's knowledge. So, the entire system is doing unproductive work over and over again, which needs not to be done. But this is avoidable when the lessons learned from mistakes and failures are easily accessible to everyone. So, Andrew Carnegie, he says, he's a famous author, the only irreplaceable capital an organization possesses is the knowledge and ability of its people. The productivity of the capital depends on how effectively people share their competence with those who can use it. So, he is also a very famous American industrialist, a philanthropist, and he kind of emphasizes the importance of knowledge and the importance of human capital, and that he says that it is the only irreplaceable capital which the organization has. Other things can be replaced, and it is not only the people, but the knowledge and ability which the people possess, and the productivity of this capital is dependent on how effectively people share with their knowledge or their competence or their abilities with those who need them or who can use them. Now, coming to the 5 P's of strategic knowledge management. The first P is planning. What should strategic knowledge is, when we are developing a system of strategic knowledge management, then first of all what should be clarified? The clarity should be related to the knowledge goals. Why are we making this system? And it should clarify knowledge goals and establish effective processes to support these directions or these goals. Then takes times and demands perseverance. Now, knowledge management is not a one-time activity. You have to constantly work on it, you have to constantly update it, you have to constantly modify it, you have to constantly see that the system is properly working. So, it requires time, it requires patience, it requires perseverance, requires ongoing monitoring and measurement. And then obviously there has to be, as I said, this you can do, it will deliver results only when there is a proper system of evaluation, and then progressive review and replanning to handle changing environment. And in case if we feel that systems have to be changed, new systems have to be devised, then in that case, depending on the changing environment, we have to again review and replan. So, the first P of strategic knowledge is planning. The second P is people. Now, obviously knowledge is nothing in the absence of people. Knowledge cannot be created in the absence of people, and secondly it is people only who retrieve knowledge or who require knowledge. So, the most important aspect is to recognize that strategic knowledge management lies with the people. People manage the systems and processes. The need is to convince people about the benefits of strategic knowledge management. So, unless people are not convinced that this is a very good system, it is for their advantage, it will minimize their efforts, in the sense there will be no duplication of efforts, it will do things faster. Unless that is clear to the people, they understand it, the entire system of the knowledge management will fail, because neither people will then they will not never update knowledge, neither they will retrieve, nor they will share, nor they will create, and the entire system, as I said, will be a waste, it will collapse. Then the next P of knowledge management is process. So, knowledge management principles need to put into application via effective workplace practices. So, it is not like this that you create a system of knowledge management and you are happy about it. It requires a proper process in place, that how knowledge will be acquired, how it will be saved, how it will be retrieved, right, and who will be the people who will be responsible for managing the system. So, every process has to be put in place. Careful management of the alignment of strategies, principles, processes and practices need to be done. So, all the supporting parts of the system of knowledge management need to be aligned and need to be coordinated and need to be working in alignment with each other. Then need of the hour would be to monitor the actual process regularly to ensure that it reflects knowledge priority. So, one thing should be very clear, if you create a system and later on the employees feel that knowledge, it is just a system which has been created because every organization is creating, and that does not we are not serious about it, then again it will loses its relevance. So, we should the employee should be made aware of the fact that actually knowledge is the priority for the organization. Then next is products. Each organization builds its own knowledge output, might be shared to clients or exist as internally shared knowledge objects. So, the output of knowledge will not be the same for every organization. In fact, some organization may require from the same data, from the same information, some organization may require some kind of results, outcomes, some may require some other outcome, depending on what are their priorities, what are their strategic objectives. So, that will vary from organization to organization, and that output, or in what format the output has to be created, that should be clarified from the very start itself. And then this output, if it is relevant for the customer, it can be shared with the customer also, but if it is not relevant for the customer, then it can be for internal sharing, internal circulation only. And explicit knowledge should be captured and distributed efficiently and timely, right. So, explicit knowledge we have already seen, there is explicit knowledge, there is tacit knowledge. So, whatever is the explicit knowledge, because it is very obvious, very clear part of the knowledge, it should be very well stored, and it should be retrievable very fast, and it should be shared in the best possible way, and it should be a very prompt kind of sharing of this knowledge. And the last P of strategic knowledge management is performance. Now, a regular review to ensure the financial and social capital investment is positively influencing intellectual and social capital of the organization. So, this we have to see that how the system is performing, and one of the ways to see the system how it is performing is that we should, through reviews, we should come to know, or it should be clear to us, that this investment in financial and social capital, we are spending a lot of money, we are making investments on the people, we are trying to update their knowledge. So, whether is it really worth it, whether the intellectual and social capital of the organization is improving at all or not, or is the system a fail, just it is there, but it is not giving us any viable results. Then regular evaluation to consider how well knowledge management is integrated into the business context. So, this is also very important, because you may have a very good system of knowledge management, but what is the problem like? The problem is that it is not matching with your business goals, it is irrelevant for your business context, it is not leading to the achievement of your strategic objectives. In that case also, even if the system is performing very well, it is functioning very well. It is but it is a failure because it is not giving us the kind of results we expect from this system. Now, then we will talk about the essentials of strategic knowledge management. If we want this system to be efficient, if we want this system to work for us in the best possible way, then we have to create certain conditions through which we can ensure the effectiveness of strategic knowledge management. So, what are these conditions or essentials? The first is motivate. So, you all know what motivation is. So, to enable knowledge related actions, it is usually necessary to provide incentives and rewards to the targeted users to encourage the desired behaviors. So, knowledge management, it is a new system. If you want to implement this system, people will not be used to it. They will feel that it is a waste of time to you update the knowledge or to share the knowledge or to also retrieve the knowledge. People feel that I am competent enough, why should I look at the knowledge which has been stored or which has been created by others. So, if we have a system by which we can motivate the employees to make use of this system, and how will we motivate them? We should have a system of a system of incentives and rewards by which people feel that they should contribute to this knowledge management, strategic knowledge management, because certain good things are associated with it. Setting goals and measurements which individuals and managers must achieve is also important. So, first individuals should be well aware of what they need to do, take out from this strategic knowledge management system, and what benefits they will get if they work closely with this system, get the maximum out of this system, then what personal individual benefits will come to them if they do so. Establishing formal incentives and rewards will reinforce the goals and measures. So, if we have a system of very clear incentives and rewards associated, then what will happen? The goals will be of the strategic knowledge management will be much more achievable. The means of motivating employees include communicating to them, modeling expected behaviors, recognizing those who demonstrate desired behaviors, providing incentives for meeting objectives, and rewarding outstanding performance. So, these are but obvious ways of motivating people, that tell them, inform them that this is to be done, then you kind of tell them that if you do this, then you will get this. So, their behavior shapes according to that, and then of course, when certain people do according to what has been told, according to the expectations of the organization, then they need to be recognized, and then they need to be given what they have been promised. So, this will create a ripple effect wherein other people or other members of the organization will also go out of their way to see that they are part and parcel of strategic knowledge management. Then second is network. A fundamental way for knowledge to be shared is through direct contact between people. So, more and more people communicate with each other, they come into contact with each other, more and more sharing of knowledge will take place. So, that is why networking is very important. Communicating across organization silos allows good ideas to be exchanged between people who might otherwise be unaware of each other. So, as I said that it should not be communication across the same levels or within the department, it should be communication across the organization, across various levels of the organization, and then only people will, because in a department or in a particular level, people know each other. Over a period process of working, they know each other. But what about interdepartmental? What about across different layers in the organization? So, that has to be taken care of. Building and expanding social networks creates valuable links between individuals and groups. Emerging social software supports these networks through adding friends, identifying shared interests and tagging resources. So, we have social softwares which benefit the organization in this process of networking, like we have social these all these like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So, these are all social networks. So, similarly we can have exclusive social softwares for the organization which can help the organization and the employees to identify or to come into touch with like-minded people who have similar interests, like we have on the social media platforms. Also we have friend suggestions, and people, if you like a particular video or a post, then similar posts come before you. So similarly these social softwares also help the organization and help people, employees in an organization, to come into network or to network with like-minded people. Then conversations between people are the basis of building trust, gaining insights and sparking new ideas. So once networks are formed, not only knowledge is easy to share, but new knowledge is also created. Then third is supply. Supply side knowledge management includes collecting documents and files, capturing information and work product, and storing these forms of explicit knowledge in repositories. So supply means from where this knowledge will come. So from whatever sources it is coming, it is necessary to store it very properly. Tacit knowledge can also be captured and converted to explicit knowledge by recording conversations and presentations, writing down what people do and say, and collecting story. So as we said that most of the knowledge, part of the knowledge is tacit. So everything cannot be converted into explicit, but yes, to whatever extent, greatest extent it can be converted into explicit knowledge, that should be tried, and that can be tried by, as we have mentioned, that recording conversations and noting down what people do, observing them. So this is how it can be done. Then analyze. Once there is supply of captured knowledge, it is then possible to analyze so that it can be applied in useful ways. So once knowledge is there, does not mean all the work has been done. Now we have to see where it can be applied. It is like a huge, you can say a medical store where there are a lot of medicines, but at least we should know for what illness, what problem, which medication has to be given. Reviewing collected information may reveal patterns, trends or tendencies which can be exploited, expanded or corrected. Knowledge can be harvested in the forms of lessons learned, proven practices and rule of thumb. So when we analyze this huge amount of knowledge, then we come to then we can view that there are certain patterns in the organization, trends, and which can be further studied, and further knowledge can be created out of that, and lot of things can be summarized or derived out of that. Then codify. Knowledge can be codified to produce standard methodologies, usable material and repeatable processes, and these processes can improve our business results. Then obviously spread, sharing of knowledge is very important. So disseminate. Knowledge will not be of any value unless potential users are aware of its availability. Examples of knowledge dissemination strategies including provide customized notifications of new or changed content, weekly newsletters featuring new submissions to repositories, and a knowledge management corner on the organization's home intranet page listing the top 10 most used documents for the current month. Email messages sharing proven practices are also good way of increasing awareness. So even if people are not aware of a very good knowledge part, then in that case you can create awareness by these methods. Then demand. So people are looking for content, so it should be easier to find those resources through search engines, ask the expert, and then you have to act on the knowledge. That Peter Drucker has very famously said, the knowledge that we consider knowledge proves itself in action. So disseminating what has been learned allows it to be applied to new situations, and you have to answer questions and you have to reuse this knowledge. Then the next would be invent. That what we are deriving from this knowledge, and then augment, that means increasing, enhancing this knowledge in different challenging or difficult times. So, these are the various essentials of effective knowledge management, and I hope now you must be able to understand the concept in much detail. Thank you.